Okay, last but not least, we are going to be adding a sky to our scene. And this is actually going to be a simple way to do this. We could hand paint the clouds, but I'm actually going to show you guys how we can use a image and extract data from that image or sections of that, so we can actually have that as a piece for our textures. So one thing I want you to also see here with this, so if I zoom out, I have these on separate pieces, so I can actually rotate those if that's something that your art director decided. Instead of actually having this on one sheet where I have a solid color and I have clouds, I can actually have two different cloud layers moving independently by, and then my gradient, which is just a blue to white right there. So how do we do this? How do we put this stuff together? Let's see. Okay, so I am in Photoshop, same layer or same Photoshop project I'm working in, and I'm going to go to my sky, hit place, and this is going to be what I'm going to use to create my sky. So one of the first things we need to realize is that this is not taking up the entire sheet. So let's hold down shift and snap that to the top and bottom, and let's go down here, and these were free textures back in the day. We're going to get rid of these, the text here, because we don't want to deal with that. I'm actually going to make sure that this is rasterized. Right now you'll notice there's that little icon saying it's not. So I'm going to hit rasterize, and now I'm going to be able to modify it. So I'm going to go in here and make sure that I have my healing brush, and let's see. Let me go to Alt click and just start painting this in. So my spot healing brush, remember, just Alt click, just like the clone stamp, and you should be able to sample out certain areas in here that we don't want. So we have a telephone line gone. So now we have something like this. Now, let's see what else we have going on in here. If I go to my filter, other, offset, oh boy, that is not a repeating texture. We need to do something about that. So one of the first things that we can do, let's try to use that spot healing brush, and let's go increase our size and sample something like this, and then paint. And sometimes this actually does work pretty well. So I'm just going to paint that one again, and that fixed that up. Let's go and try the spot healing brush right here, and let's try it right here. That worked out pretty well. Sometimes it may sample a color, you just can't get something to go away, or it's going to end up blurring something out to the point where it's going to be very obvious, like right here, that you're using something like a spot healing brush. So how would we fix that? Well, we can try to sample a different area. There we go. Sample the top. My rule is that if you're going to be working with clouds, these are very, very organic and linear looking shapes. They don't feel like they're these very rigid structures. So it's something to think about when you're creating your repeating texture, that you shouldn't have things that look like they're duplicating. So when I try to work with a spot, like maybe I need to finish fixing around here, I'm going to sample areas that are far away from where this original piece was. That way, now that color in the background was a little bit too close for that, and you'll notice you have a darkening there. So maybe I shouldn't sample that. But the goal is that you shouldn't have repeating pieces like here and here. That's what throws people, or doesn't throw people. It actually makes people think, wait a minute, this isn't real. Okay, so we're almost there. I have this wispy spot right here. Not sure how I'm going to be able to fix that by fixing it with my my brush here. Sorry, it's 1 in the morning as I record this for you guys, so definitely feeling it. Okay, I've got these little skulls that magically show up don't want those. So I want the wisps, but I don't need the skulls. I see 2 eyes and a nose there, which maybe it's because I'm tired. Probably. So again, sampling areas that are further away than the start. Good idea to do that. And that's pretty good. Now to deal with some of this stuff right here, I'm going to use my clone stamp tool and just try to paint some of these spots out. If they look like they're repeating too much, sample away. And that's going to definitely give you a little bit more of a organic look to these clouds. So we've fixed the seam. There is some spots like right here. That color makes more sense than that color, so I'm just going to paint that in too. So I'm going to sample these colors. Some of the worst projects usually when you're working on these things, the things that I usually see, people will just sample away and have these really sporadic looking textures. You want to make this look like they're clouds floating in the sky. So you don't want to go and just grab that clone stamp and just start tapping away. I've seen stuff like this submitted and it doesn't even make sense. Or somebody just grabbing this and like having these weird highlights. Try to make that shape of a cloud show up. So now that I have something like this, if I were to go into my select, and if I go to my select, let's go color range, and I go to highlights, and I'm going to play around with the fuzziness. I'm going to drop fuzziness down. You'll notice range. I want a range so I can kind of cut these clouds out, but do it in a way that it's not looking, it's got ragged edges to it. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to actually hit mask. Now that looks a little bit weird right now, but I'm also going to try here, filter offset. Oops. Filter offset. Okay. Those are looking good. Let's see if we can get this to show up in Maya. And so we're going to call these clouds. Whatever reason, I wish Photoshop brought you back to where you were working. That'd be so nice. Okay, so clouds, scenes, images, okay. PNG, we'll call that clouds. Save. Okay. So here is my scene before I added the clouds. And to be able to get that to apply, I need to first create a material. Go to create materials, blend, bring specular down to 0, go to color, and in color we'll link a file, and we will add our clouds that open. Alright, now we need to assign that to this. So if we were to middle mouse button drag it, for whatever reason dragging is not working on my machine tonight, I gotta update. I'm gonna just right click assign material to selection, and holy cow, that looks atrocious. So what's going on here? Well, let's look at what our UVs are doing. It's not right. The UVs are in the dead center of my screen. So I need to scale this thing up so that my objects are sampling as much as possible here, and that's looking better. It may even be okay. Let's say maybe we're only going to sample that much, and we'll move this up a little bit. So if we're going to sample this much, I'm also going to make sure that my UVs are snapping to these ends here. Okay. let's look at what our UV set is doing. Let's call these clouds. And by clouds, I mean something gibberish. Okay. So I got clouds here. My UV texture is 1:1, and it is wrapping around once. Since humans and most things aren't able to see around 360 degrees of their head, let's make that twice for repeat. Now there's without it, and here's with it, and that's repeating twice. That's pretty nice. We can make it better though. Let's duplicate that. So Control D. Let's rotate it. Scale it. And we're making sure we're not going to scale it so it's having this repeat happening. Okay. So now that we have something like this, let's just do that one more time. I'm going to duplicate that layer, scale it up, and this time I'm going to go in and create, oh, Hypershade, don't go there. Okay, create materials, blend, drop that, and we're going to go to color this time, and we're going to go to ramp. And with ramp, I just want to change the colors of this, so it's going to be selected color. Let's go like a blue. And then for this one, let's go a lighter blue. Let's apply that to this third cylinder that I have here. So that'll be my ramp. Okay. Now let's go into our camera. It's very cartoony colors right now. But if we were to add our hardware fog and then make it so you can't see anything at all, let's fix that. Now for you guys, I'll have the camera set up a little bit different. But for me, I have to group this, scale this up a bit so the hardware fog doesn't go crazy like that. And let's see, gradient, camera. All right, let me fix my hardware fog again. All right, so now, there we go. A little bit more manageable there. And now if we were to look around, we have a sky. Now we won't go all the way up, and again, you're the person making your movie, so you probably shouldn't be making terrible decisions by doing something like that. We could do a dome, but this is a simple set right here, and you can see we have all of our components added to our scene. We have our ground, we have our road, and we have our sky. And I'm going to turn off hardware fog because it's driving me nuts right now. All these components are working together to build an environment, and it's all about creating repeating textures. So all these different areas should not be overlooked when you're working. Now this simple area, it could be pretty nice for, let's say that we have a setup like this. We have our character walking by here. They're like maybe that big. Notice how I can zoom in, I can give 180s around my camera, and I can compose some pretty nice shots with this setup without having much effort after I built my scene. This has to do with pre-production and planning. Also, again, pushing the organics on this and then making some mountains and things like that are pretty helpful. Let's even see, does this smooth up okay? Probably not. It did, except for the road. So the road could be fixed. It's not that big of a deal to fix this one. You can grab these vertices and just pull those up so they're not in the ground. So that's actually it's a lot better because we just smoothed that. So this is how we can easily start to build out a scene. and make it feel like we've got a lot to work with for left and right and all that fun stuff. So as you can tell probably by the sound of my voice, I'm getting tired. So this is the end of this. Make sure when you guys are submitting this, I don't want blends. I want clouds, dirts, I want flowers and grass. I also want to make sure you'll have stuff labeled for you guys, but I want you to make sure everything is labeled in your Photoshop file. So you'll notice I made everything inside of one Photoshop file. And of course right now it's called Untitled because that's how professional I am right now. But this should all be placed inside as well. We are not doing any bump maps or anything like that. We need a sky, dirt, flowers, and grass. So those are what we need. And as always, make sure you archive your scene when you're submitting. All right, enjoy.